Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Edge and Flow podcast. I'm here with Lucas Burnley. And in this podcast, we talk about knives. We talk about making knives, designing knives. We talk about CNC machines, art, design, lifestyle, anything that could have anything to do with the things we do on a daily basis.
We cut a broad swath.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
How's it going, man?
It's going good. We were briefly going to dive into something before we started recording, which is simply described as a rat's nest. And both of us had a week of rat's nests, or at least a day. So
I
go
like
ahead.
basically just skid into my chair as we were starting to, record.
Let's
I
hear about
am
it.
I'm very elevated right now. Dude, it's just one of those days. I got up super early and went straight into CAD because I ran into a mistake last night. Blew my bedtime. I know this is like it's going deep. Uh Decided to just stop while I was ahead. Got up this morning. And I've basically spent the day chasing that problem and trying to figure it out. I've sent you two messages. Um, in the middle of that, I had to take my truck into the shop, and this is a new one on me. I jump started it a while back and apparently blew out a steering sensor.
Mm,
I'm trying to sell my truck, and right now I'm very mad. That's
mm.
like just like one of these like cascading,
The cold
like
weather kill the
yeah,
battery, or
yeah. So I'd never seen this, but cold weather killed the battery. It was starting super weak. Finally died. Jump started it. Okay. Drove it, didn't charge, had to jump it again. What the tech thinks is that second jump on a fully dead battery basically just like blasts through no resistance and is able to fry this sensor. He's like, we don't know why it happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough that we thought that this might be what it is.
they've noticed it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
he's like,
pattern failure.
we've jumped cars on the lot before and had it happen, and we don't know if it was the customer had done it before or if we did it right then. He's like, but basically $1,000 fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, just enough to be like,
Is it the clocking sensor on the steering
it
wheel?
it. I don't even. He didn't even say. So I don't.
Oh,
Angle. Like yeah. So
yeah,
basically
clocking.
like a clocking.
I replaced
Uh,
that on my old Wrangler. I had to do that.
dude, very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, I just want this truck gone now. I'm very
Yeah.
mad because I love it. And so it's
Yeah.
like a double whammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get to pick the kids up from school early today because of inclement weather. So it's just one
Mhm.
of those. Like
Yeah.
can't quite get my footing.
Yeah. 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 I know what
What
you
about
mean.
you?
Well, I replaced the battery in my Jeep this week, and that was
Nice.
part of my rat's nest. Same situation, especially it's a diesel and a diesel in -5 degrees. The
Mm.
battery's already on its like heels, and then it just wasn't able to turn a diesel engine over anymore. And it was only a 2 month old battery, because I had a same exact thing that you just described, which is that the only issue I've had with my Jeep is there was one wire that got burnt on the exhaust because it was just allowed to be too close when they built the thing. And so
Mm.
now it's fixed, but when that happened, it killed the battery down to 0 voltage. And then when we jump started it, this was a couple months ago, when we jump started it, it started to fry some stuff. And so it went to the dealership, blah, blah, blah. So I can relate to you, in other words, but they
It's
put
the
a new,
exact same. That sounds like the
yeah,
exact same thing.
they put a new battery in it 2 months ago, and they at that time didn't realize that it was there was a parasitic short that was killing the
Mm.
battery. So the other battery got sent to 0 voltage like twice after that, and then they fixed the wire. So I had this like limp battery for the last 2 months, and the cold weather knocked it out. So I bought like a high end like yellow top Optima battery, and yeah, that was my week. So that's funny that we had a
Oh
battery rat's
man.
nest.
You know what's funny is that like did you ever wrench on your cars when you were younger? Did you
Yeah.
have cars like did you drive old cars?
I had a 1982 Trans Am that I did
Yeah.
some wrenching on. Yeah.
You're like for probably the first 10 years of vehicle ownership, like I never went to a mechanic. I did everything
Mhm.
myself. And like ridiculous things like, oh, I've got a Honda Civic and I'm going to replace the subframe and like crazy, like just like crazy things, like
Mm,
no, I mean, like little things like changing timing belts and doing all of that. At this point, I don't do it. Don't have the space to do it. But when stuff like this happens, I get so mad and I'm like, I
yeah,
want to do it. And then I realize I wouldn't even know what I'm doing now anyway,
yeah,
because it's not a,
yeah.
1990 Honda Civic.
I know 1982 Trans Am was pretty simple
Dude.
to work on compared
Oh,
to nowadays.
yeah. CV joints, change
Yeah.
clutches, like everything. And just like no option other than to do it. Like, oh, I burnt my clutch out in my CRX. Like, all right, let's
Mhm.
do it. It
Yep.
didn't even occur to me to go to someone.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
my Haynes manual and like go to work.
Yeah. No
We
kidding.
keep having these conversations around like shop space. We get like almost 2 feet of snow in like a day. I'd shoveled, I think, 3 or 4 times from, like when we got up
Yeah.
to like when we went to sleep. And I'm like, man, a snowblower would be rad.
Yeah.
And the way that my brain works, it's like, cool. If you add another 1,000 square foot building, like then you can have a snowblower. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we need a new house. Like,
Yep.
because I want to keep this truck and I want a snowblower. So let's
Yeah.
move. It's a slippery slope.
It is. It is. Yeah. We got not that much snow because we're super low elevation for Idaho where we're at. But we still got like a total of pushing, I don't know, 10 inches.
It's real.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
storm.
Yeah. Yeah. It
We're getting the
blanketed the
same
whole
storms.
Northwest. I mean, everywhere is socked in. But yeah, snow days for days.
Hmm.
But that brings me to another topic,
Lay
which
it on
is
me.
something that distracted me majorly today, and that is I met the landlord and signed the lease on the new shop space.
Boom.
So yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
This is major.
Yeah, it should help. Should help.
Slightly.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit different moving forward, I think.
So what are we talking about? What is the current square footage that you have?
300 current, 3,000 upgrade.
10x gain.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
bad.
yeah. And I will say, I'm sharing the shop with my Cerakoter, SRG Armament. His name's Steven. And
It's
so
just getting better.
yeah, so he's taken 25% of that square footage for he has a full paint booth that's like completely framed in and sealed. And he has like his ovens and stuff and his like racks. So that's where one corner is going to be. So it's like he's going to be Cerakoting our stuff. So it's like the perfect person to kind of share a shop with,
What a
if you ask me.
great start to the new year.
Yeah.
That, oh, so excited. Okay. 3,000 square feet. When's the move? Or when does it
So
start?
February 1st, so I got 12 days. It's like the other guy's out and Steven's already in there. The guy that moved out was sharing it with him, so I'm just replacing. So it's not like that we know the other tenant and I can just go in and start doing stuff whenever I want.
Nice.
But I'm probably just going to start doing some like power and air lines and some things that are just preparatory over the next probably 2 weeks. Snow is definitely not going to allow us to do any real like rigging for a minute. So hopefully February we get a couple of warm days and the roads get a little clearer and then we can do some moving. But
It's actually kind of ideal because just what you said, you can run airlines,
yeah,
run extra electric if you need
mhm,
it.
yeah,
That is the stuff that a lot of times gets put off for the sake of urgency.
yeah, yeah,
So, and that's
yeah,
nice inside work.
yeah. And the shop, the one of the biggest blessings about it is how well it's like climate controlled.
Hmm.
It's natural gas heat, which is like the best possible scenario
That's
in this
amazing.
area. It's like the absolute cheapest possible scenario.
Hmm.
And it's 3,000 square feet. It's got, I don't know, 14-foot, 15-foot ceiling, something like that. And the entire thing, it was -5 degrees. When I walked over there at daylight, I went in there. It was 70 degrees in every corner of the shop through like just the whole thing, just natural gas. So super fortunate for that.
That's pretty good,
Yeah.
dude. So I feel like we talked about this a little bit. Do you have a strategy yet? Like, as far as what are you going to do? Is the goal to get in and get back up and running as quickly as
Yes.
possible? Okay.
Yeah. It's going to
So
be
what are
like,
you going to do? Like, how are you going
so,
to do that?
so our shop is set up currently where the only way to rig the machines out is to have everything else out because they're in the back of the shop.
Nice.
So we'll schedule a rigger once we can see a clear weather patch. We'll schedule a rigger, hopefully for a Friday if that works, and then we'll spend easily 1 day prior to the rigger. Easily, we could move everything else. We could probably move everything else in half a day, a few hours,
Nice.
honestly, and get everything out from in front of the machines, get it just staged in the shop where it needs to be roughly. And then machines go back. Power should hook up within a matter of hours because the machine's going to sit right in front of the panel, three-phase power. So we'll hook it up. Um, I'm pretty optimistic we won't even lose like a whole entire week. Like we'll be able to phase in at least parts of production. Obviously, there's going to be tons of squeaky wheels all over the place for like
Sure.
at least a couple months in terms of fully optimizing, but um, there's not a lot to do to get at least the important things going. So
Are you going to
um,
recreate your shop in the shop?
it is a little bit that way,
Yeah.
actually. So I think I said before, it's got a bunch of posts in it. It's like it's got beams with like wood
Mm-hmm.
posts coming down. So there's a section that's going to be the machine shop. And so the machine shop is going to be the current footprint of my current entire shop. So the
Oh, wow.
machine shop is dedicated, and the orientation of it is going to be the same as what it is right now, except there will now be a space for a third machine eventually. So
Right.
that'll be allocated. And then the dirty room is going to be removed from that area and placed in a separate bay. So we're going to compress everything to the minimum square footage we can possibly use and
Yep.
still have the expandability where necessary. So
It's great.
we're basically going to be in the corner is how it's going to
That's
look.
ideal though, because then your machines are where they need to be, and you just remove things as you gain efficiency
Yeah.
and new machines.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the scalability. I know it's like easy to use up more square footage than you initially think, but
Mm-hmm.
I've just done a bunch of sketching on like graphing paper, like the amount that could fit in that room that
Dude, that's a
is
huge amount of space.
it's we would have to increase our output by
Yeah,
like 10x to
that's
need that much
huge.
room. Yeah.
Our last shop was 2,400 square feet. It might as well have been like a football field.
Yeah.
Like it was cavernous. Like
Yeah.
I could even park my truck in it. Like
Yeah.
that is amazing. Okay.
So
What's the first machine on the list?
so very first machine, Sile X9.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get settled into the shop, get some. Ultimately, I want to see how this LT5 launches. That's kind of an X factor of like what the
Mm-hmm.
next moves are. I want to get a bow on that before we consider like a PO for a machine. But the X9, it's starting to feel pretty urgent actually. So I think pretty soon we'll try to think about going that direction.
Reach out to Titan.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty nice. You forget, like with social media, like watching him post in the Sile group on Facebook, it really is one degree of separation.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether they answer or not is like a thing, but he's actively hustling, like getting those machines up and running.
yeah, yeah,
So that's pretty cool. You can
yeah.
like open up a door.
The X factor is that the X9 is a new machine
Mm-hmm.
and they have not been delivered to the US yet or
Right.
anywhere in the world, I don't think. So that's the X factor here is that's the machine I want and I don't know when I can get one. So I need to start that conversation. But
Yeah. Might as well.
yeah,
So does that mean like at this point, I guess you like who you bought the Sile from round one is no longer the contact point, probably,
yeah.
or
So the
are
guys,
they?
Wesley is the guy
Mm-hmm.
down in Houston. I talked to a sales guy named Jeff. I haven't reached out to Jeff, but I know Wesley Wang. He's the guy that is in Houston that kind of runs like US operations for Sile.
Okay.
I know is working with Titan, so he's still the guy and I can still reach out to him at least. But yeah, I need to rekindle that and possibly now that the shop is set in stone, this ball might start to roll. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Super exciting.
Yeah, yeah. And then we talked about it on the phone earlier today, but it's it's ironic because you mentioned it in the last episode. I've been like allergic to the idea of ever owning a water jet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming less allergic really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely very far in second place behind having another mill, but it's definitely on the radar. So
Yeah,
we'll
but
see.
I don't, as a need, it's far behind because you have a resource to do it,
Hmm.
but the resource bothers you.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
it's
paying rent
economics.
versus paying a mortgage.
Exactly. It's
They both
economics.
work. They both work. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like depending on what you do with the rest of your money, it doesn't matter. You're using someone else's resource,
Yeah.
but like psychologically, I think it comes into play.
Yeah. 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 I have a quality water jet resource. Like you said, it's not like bringing it in house would change anything in
Right.
our process. It's just if we do enough product, the tipping point gets far enough
Yeah.
economically that it's just basic math. The
Would
X,
that necessitate another employee or would the two of you guys be able to handle? I mean, again, now you have increased output, so it starts
yeah,
to be kind of chicken or the egg.
yeah. So we'll have to have at least part-time help pretty soon,
Yeah.
um, because we haven't been able. We've been kind of limping with only just him and I, with Dalton and I, because we just physically have that much space.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I mean, basically the three like key directions are, like I said, the new mill, some part-time help, and the water jet. That's what's like on my radar. But I'd say the water jet's distant, and the other two are like, I
Yeah.
would say, starting to become more immediate.
It's exciting.
It
I
is.
don't remember if we talked about this or not, but I think I'm gonna use a sile as a dopamine reward, which sounds
Okay.
crazy,
Okay.
but basically that will be my reward for streamlining a new in-house model. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Hmm.
My Haas is a 2007. I run into limitations at this point when I'm building folders with like, I've got 10 tools and a
Hmm.
6,000 RPM spindle. Like I can do everything I need to do, but I look and I'm like, it'd be cool to have more tools, and
Yeah.
I actually don't need as big of a work envelope. We were going over sizes on them and it's like, dude, the X5 is basically, I think you compared it to like a refrigerator, like a
Yeah.
narrow refrigerator.
It's 39 inches wide, which
That's
is basically three
bananas.
feet. Three
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah. I think in the space of my Haas, which is a TM1P, I think I could almost fit an X5 and an X7, which that ultimately like seeing how you're running two spindles now really kind of opened my eyes to the efficiency around that. And I was always like, one is good. Like, but it was never numbers based.
Hmm.
And even at this point, like, even if I still stay in like a little bit more of like a prototype, like slash like sprint run kind of mode, I think two spindles is a really good
Yeah.
plan. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's it. And it gives me something else to like learn,
Yeah. Yeah.
focus on,
For sure. For sure. Yeah. No, they're great. I've had good luck.
doing it. Speaking of which, uh, we're at next stage. So for CAD,
Hmm.
I have completed my project. I'm going to ask you to review it. Basically, I want to go over it and make sure that I didn't create any like hidden fatal flaws,
Hmm.
which is basically what I thought I did and spent today and yesterday trying to solve. I still have one thing. It's weird. It's like all of a sudden one of the component drawings is detached. So when I
Hmm.
save my assembly file, it's not updating my
Hmm.
scale file.
Hmm.
So I'm going to pull on you for that.
Okay.
But what that means is I need to know what the next step is. Like I know where I would go working Rhino in my current process, but I don't know where to go Fusion
Hmm.
to fixture to
Yeah.
Pearson. Like it's
Yeah.
all new to me.
Yeah. Well, the Pearson Sile formula is my favorite. Yeah. It's a good combo.
That's the double. Yeah. Okay. Wait, is there a third tool in there that's really important? So you have Pearson. What's your tooling plate?
I don't use one anymore. Like
You
on the
don't use one anymore? Okay.
here's the I will say this big catch on the Sile. The like Saunders style plates and
Yep.
like real low slung fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
So if like it's not a vise or if it's not a Pearson, the
Mm-hmm.
machine like can't reach the table. It's the minimum dimension between where the spindle can go and the table is like 6.5 inches.
Oh,
And
interesting.
on a BT30 holder, they're not generally very long. And like if you put like a fixture plate on there and you just put like a pallet like straight on the table, it just
Mm-hmm.
without like some real long reach holders, it won't reach. You won't be able to do it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you so you don't use the Saunders plate as a base for your Pearson?
So I still have my plate for I
Yeah.
did buy a Saunders plate for the Sile kind of without realizing the situation. And the Pearson mounts directly to it. And that is handy, but
But not necessary.
the one downside to a plate, especially an aluminum plate on steel, is you're going to rust the table.
Yeah.
Like the table is going to degrade because of the plate being on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a sacrifice you're willing to make. If I'm not using the plate for any reason, then I'm not going to like damage my table for just to have it there.
Yeah.
So I removed it and put the Pearson straight on the table, which with a Sile, like I did pretty much skip the plate, like pretty much in all cases.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I was trying to make a comparison between like the tool trifecta,
Mm,
which
yeah.
was the bandsaw, drill press, and belt
hmm
sander. And
hmm
so maybe yours is the Sile, the Pearson,
Sile
and the Saunders.
Pearson. Yeah. Yeah. No, I still
but
use
but it's not.
Saunders. I love Saunders stuff. What I did is you can either make a Pearson pallet that has the Saunders hole pattern,
Mm-hmm.
or you can mount what I did was mount a Saunders like they sell like a it's a pallet that mimics a plate sort of,
Mm-hmm.
or you could buy one of their smaller plates and mount it on the Pearson. So when
Mm-hmm.
I need to use a vise, I use a Saunders vise on top of the Pearson.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, because Saunders vices are really nice for like you can open up the jaws to be like really wide if you had to,
Mm-hmm.
wider than you're ever going to get with like a conventional vise, and you don't have to pull the Pearson. So I still use Saunders stuff. I have no issue with it. It's just the reason they do that on these a lot of high end mills actually have that same issue with the clearance to the table
Mm-hmm.
is because think about it this way: if you had a vise or really any modern type of fixture, or like let's say a fourth axis, um, if the work envelope of the mill is starting at like zero at the table, then like 30% of it is wasted
Right.
always.
Yeah.
And so they're like making an engineering decision. Let's move that entire envelope up six
Right.
inches to gain you the clearance height to swing like a drill over a
Right.
fourth axis during a tool change.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a reason they do that. And so you
Makes
just kind
perfect
of,
sense. It's
yeah,
like minimum usable travel where you're
yeah,
like, you're not going to be bolting a piece of sheet down to your mill table,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
They're expecting you not to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're expecting you.
yeah,
Never let them know your next move.
yeah. Right. But I did buy a couple of long reach holders for like weird situations, just
Nice.
in case. And you can do that. But like the longer the reach, the more the run out, the less the rigidity. Like it's not the
Right.
ideal
Not the ideal.
situation.
Remind me of this. Are they, it's all BT30? Your X7's BT30?
BT30 on the X7 and the X5. You can get HSK on both of them.
Okay.
And then the X9's is Cat 40,
Cat 40.
like a Haas.
Right. And that's not something you can choose.
Uh,
Interesting. I've always had Cat 40, so
Yeah, yeah, X9 Cat
it's like
40. Yeah, there's BT30. The benefit of BT30 is it helps with RPM. You can get a lot of RPM, and the motor can stop it faster.
right.
It's not just the holder; it's like the entire rotating mass is less.
Yeah. Yeah.
So usually the faster, like if you look at the Haas, what are they called? DM and the DTs
The DT.
are
Yeah.
BT30, and then you look at the like Speedios, a lot of them
Mhm.
are BT30 because they're trying to be fast.
Right.
So it's not all bad that it's small.
Yeah, I have zero problem with it.
Yeah,
Again, like looking at like OMs and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
the work envelope and like the size of the part,
yeah.
it makes sense. You're
And
not going to throw like some
it
huge fly cutter in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it also correlates to like tool change time,
Yeah.
because the faster it can stop that spindle from like 10,000 RPM, and then the faster it can get it back up
Yeah.
to 10,000 RPM, then the quicker it can change a tool.
These are things
So,
I have never worried about ever.
right.
The
Yeah.
only thing that happens to me, like when I watch like a DT change tools, is I get scared.
Yeah.
It
Right.
just like, because I don't know,
That arm.
that's like,
Yeah.
dude, 0 to 90, like
Yeah.
just like flip. I'm like, that's a real crash waiting to
Yeah.
happen.
And I will say, from what I've seen, the siles are not on the level of the DT and DMs for
Yeah.
tool change speed. That's easily the biggest, I would say, differential where Haas wins. If
Yep.
you're getting one of Haas's like fast machines,
Right.
they're faster.
They're faster.
Yeah, but a
Did I
mini
send you
mill,
that last? Did I send you that last DT that popped up at auction?
mm-mm,
No,
maybe you didn't.
might
I
have
don't
been
know.
holding off. There's been like some good machines kind of like popping up. I have a few sites where I'm just on their mailing list. And every once in a while, it's like, shop closure. Like, here's
Hmm.
this floor of, there's 3 DTs and
Yeah,
a super mini mill or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
It's like kind
If
of
I was
fun.
going to get a Haas, I'd be pretty tempted by the DM.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty
Still
sweet.
doesn't answer my question. What comes next? What's my
What?
next step?
Oh, your next step. Oh, yeah, dude,
This is a good tangent.
you have a Pearson.
I have a
You
Pearson.
have a CNC mill.
I do.
So if you are confident in the design stage that you're at,
Yep.
um, here's what I recommend. Fusion has the tendency to be a little bit unstable
Okay.
because it's a parametric model, which means like if you have a knife blade or a knife scale that is like that was designed in Fusion, you have like all the sketches and elements and chamfers and fillets and radii and like
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. Fusion wants you to take that part and take it into the machining tab or the manufacturing tab as
Mm-hmm.
is. That way, if you change something on it, it changes in the manufacturing space.
Right.
This scares me. So, what I
Really?
prefer is to export the solid when you're very happy with the completion of the design. You export I would probably build the fixture first. Then I would export the solid of the fixture and the solid of the parts as like a step file. And then I
Okay.
would re-upload them so that they are stripped of the timeline and they're just literally like volumes in the program. And so they'd be exactly what you
Ooh.
designed, but without the tree. And the reason for that is if there's any sensitivity with Fusion about an update or like a sketch breaking, it's never going to happen to your manufacturing stuff.
Okay.
And then
Just
that
like a
way,
layer of security.
yeah, it's a layer of security and stability. And the other benefit is when you export those, go ahead and create a Dropbox folder and throw all your parts. Oh no, dude. Okay, we're on Zoom for the first time and it tells me running out of time because I don't have an upgraded pro account. Um, Interesting.
This was
We
a test. We've been having a
Yeah,
bunch of problems with our other pod catcher. Is it a podcast? I don't know
yeah,
what it's called. But
yeah. So it says we're running out of time. Oh,
okay.
it's 10 minutes. So how far into this are we?
I don't know. Ooh, there's another
Doesn't
one.
say.
It doesn't say.
Okay.
We
So
don't know how long we've been talking.
we got 10 more minutes and then we'll have to just re-record another one, I guess.
Yeah. And then splice
At
them.
least now we know.
Okay.
No, we'll
Good to
upgrade it
know.
before next week.
Sounds good.
Anyway, when you export your step files are parasolids of the parts and the fixture.
Okay.
Save them and just throw them in like a catch-all Dropbox folder. And
Yep.
the reason is that insurance policy of
Right.
if anything ever happens to a Fusion file, which is possible,
Right.
it's somewhere like that you aren't going to lose it. And so the way it works for me is if I needed to change something to a part, I would be changing it on the Parasolid version by adding like a sketch where like something needs to change a little bit. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? And
Okay. So you're
driving,
using that as your base. Well, this actually brings up a great question, which is one of the things that I want to go over with you is where I can make changes and like at what point, because I will continue to mess with this
mhm,
forever. And so what I'm trying to force myself to do is not do that, and instead start a new design and just repetitions,
Mhm.
right? But that means that I have to stop the current design. I have to
Mhm.
say this design is good. I would say 99% chance as soon as I make one, I'm like, okay, I want to tweak this.
Yeah.
I obviously have some concept of things that I wouldn't change, but
Mhm.
I want to run it through you to kind of see like,
Yeah.
oh, finish this thought a little bit better, or like leave yourself flexibility here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it it maybe actually sounds less critical. Like I have the design, I like the design. I have multiple 3D printed. All I'm doing with my life is 3D printing.
Mhm.
Currently have two in front of me. Like I know what this feels like. And this is one of the beautiful things about working in solid modeling versus like working from sketches and 2D CAD.
Mhm.
I actually know what the knife feels like.
Yeah.
But that's an area where I'm like, I don't want to
Yeah.
build fixtures and then decide I want to change.
Yeah, so that's the ultimate trap. What I can say about fixtures, it depends. There's a million ways to make a fixture, but every fixture is going to have some sort of location geometry. It's
Yeah.
going to have a pivot, a dowel pin for a pivot hole. It's going to
Yeah.
have holes for tabs, shoulder bolts. It's going to have something like that. You need to be smart about what you're going to use for the location and think that anything that I change is not going to involve changing these things.
Right.
So for example, on my fixed blades, I have the location feature of the lanyard hole. So the
Yeah.
lanyard hole is a precision element that can never move unless I
Yeah.
want to remake a fixture. And the blade touches across like sort of the bridge of the nose of the blade, like towards the tip, comes up
Yeah.
against a pin. So if I know which the hole and which line is contacting that pin, I can change anything else
Just not
and
those two things.
just not those things.
Yeah.
And this is another reason to export as parasolids is that if you're tweaking on a design and the fixture was built with some sort of link to your
Oh,
design, and like let's
yeah.
say you have those locations, let's say you have like a platform that a knife sits on to give you like 3D access.
Mm-hmm.
If the design gets tweaked and something moves, the fixture is going to populate with that movement. And then the
Mm-hmm.
problem is you may not know it until you go and run like a program.
Right.
And so if the fixture especially is like divorced from its own timeline and it's like just a solid body, then if the part got manipulated accidentally in your cam window, you're going to look at it and you're going to see that it doesn't align with the fixture.
Right.
And the fixture, it didn't just populate to adjust to that part when
Yeah.
in the actual fixture in the machine is still the old version.
Right.
And then you run into the problem of like, okay, what changed and by how much and how did that happen? And then I
And then
just
tracking it back. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so interesting. I don't know if you have this, but like when you start designing, it's so easy just to kind of like get rolling. Like forgetting to save is like a great example of this.
Mhm, mhm.
We all know we should save.
Yeah,
It's super easy just to start clicking around. And then you're like 15 changes in and you're like, wait, what? That's the beauty of the constraints and making things. I've basically been trying to like make everything give it like a controllable way to change like angle of the pommel. Is there a way that I can like
yeah,
constrain that to where I have adjustability of it?
mhm,
But I thought the same thing around fixtures where I was like, man, if if and when I make a mistake with a constraint and I don't know that it's like changing my fixture, that's the stuff that freaks me out
mhm.
because it really is like your downstream decisions. Like this problem that I
Yeah,
had today, like a projection broke. I don't know why it broke. I rebuilt the projections, but all of a sudden my scale, so when I go to save it, it's gone. And I'm like,
yeah,
I've spent 4 hours trying to figure it out. I worked through a bunch of it, but that stuff freaks me out. And as you're into a real project, like that gets scary to
yeah,
me.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I that scares me a lot, and that's why so I'll have a folder that is I call design. So, like, inside of, let's say,
Got
the
it.
LT5, a folder for design that's got, like,
Yeah.
the scales, the tang, w hardware, whatever I'm, like,
Yeah.
literally designing. Then I have a folder called fixture build,
Yeah.
which is I'm going to put that part on a Pearson palette and I'm going to design the Pearson palette with constraints that are projected from the designed parts. And
Hmm.
that's obviously necessary because you need to have all your location features, you need to have clearances, those are kind of designed in unison to like so that the part makes sense on the fixture and vice versa. And I cam the fixture like in the manufacturing space based on that assembly. I make the fixture based on that. And around the time that I'm making it, before or right after, that's when I export that fixture. And then I have a new window, which is like the actual manufacturing setup window, where the only parts that are in there are ones that were those exported parts. So
Yeah.
let's say I was like, oh my gosh, I need to change this design such that I do have to make a new fixture.
Mm-hmm.
You go to your fixture build folder, you change the part to have, okay, the lanyard hole needs to move, it has to.
Right.
Then the fixture is going to adjust itself through those constraints.
Got it.
Then you remake it and you export it again, and now you have a new stable version.
Yeah.
But the version that you're using to manufacture is never linked to the design.
I do something similar with my current process, which is like I have whatever model, like you go in and it's tuna. There's a file that is basically that entire design, all of the sketches, like my background canvas, like here is the design. Okay. Then I have a separate machining, you know, file
Mhm.
basically. In there, I have the details that allow it to be machined with whatever fixturing I'm using. And like right now, like I consider it like prototype level. So I use a lot of tabs and I
Mhm.
use some like lollipops and indexing pins, right? And like shoulder bolts and stuff.
Mhm.
But none of it was made, none of it has been done to be like making multiples. And even in the time that I've done that, like there's jobs where I look at, I'm like, I could do this more accurately. I know I could. I just haven't built the next fixture. And so
Mhm.
as I'm switching complete like systems, I was like, okay, here's the things that I can see that make sense. But I just realized like machining practices and like file practices, it's so deep.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I mean, this is like prime, like don't do this stuff by yourself. I mean, like obviously everyone has to do some stuff by themselves, but like if you have a resource that you can pull
Yeah.
on and learn faster and shorten your curve, do it.
Yeah. Process
Right.
reliability from the
Yeah.
get-go. We have less than a minute.
Okay.
So let's wrap this up right now and let's just re-record.
Splice
So
it.
splice.
Yep.
All right, we're back. Sorry, guys.
Nice. Smooth.
Yeah, trying to do our free trial parasitic business practice here. We should probably
Yeah.
pay for the services we're using.
Yeah. Finding it to work very well though. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's on your end. Like the audio actually sounds better.
it does. Yeah. So far, you guys, my dad's podcast, they started using Zoom and now we're starting to use it. I think it's better than Riverside, which surprises me, but here we
Mm-hmm.
are.
Here we are. All right. So we were talking machining practices, next step for this Keyhon fixed blade project. So basically, next step ultimately is to start to design fixturing. It's like file management and fixturing. Is that kind of where
Hmm.
you would go?
Hmm.
So you create like, okay, putting a pin in it. So at that point, do you never go back to your like origin files to make changes to the design? And if you do, is the that maybe doesn't work. Is the other file connected like you would with like your component files currently?
So, like I said, you have your design files in a design folder, you have your fixture build folder. So
Mm-hmm.
those are going to be linked. And they're going to
Okay.
be that all the trees are going to be there, all the timelines. So you're going to design the part and the fixture sort of going back and forth because to me, like a part should be designed in a way that it goes on a fixture well. And
Right.
sometimes you need to see it on a fixture to understand, like, oh, I need a tab right here. It's going to make more sense if this chamfer is this deep or whatever. So design the fixture and the part sort of like in parallel once you get to like that 99% range of completion. And then after you're very confident that this is going to work and confident enough that you're going to actually machine this fixture, that is when you kind of put the line in the sand of like, I'm done changing this design. And then obviously you're gonna have to come back. But the ideal situation is that the changes you have to make can
Hmm.
be done in CAM only on
Got it.
these separate files. If it's so dramatic that it's like I have to go all the way back to the top, that sucks. But such is the nature of like building
Well,
fixtures.
and part of this is new process. I don't think will require as many iterations.
Hmm.
That is huge. So in my brain, I'm like, yeah, but I have to tweak this and like I have to go make changes. Like that seems cumbersome to like go these steps. But in reality, it's not because I'm already so much further down the design process than I was before. I like the previous way I did CAD and CAM felt like an extension of hand making to me.
Hmm.
And at best I was going in like laser cutting profiles, which even that, like even as recently like the first turn kind of design files I was doing, I was just laser cutting those because I hadn't figured out the solid modeling yet.
Hmm.
By the end of that, it started to like click a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so inside, okay, so basically we set that up, and then like I guess Pearson Palette probably has like you can just like upload a file probably for
Yeah.
that,
Go to
right?
Pearson's website, go to support, and then scroll down to downloads
Okay.
and download the whatever Pearson MPS is what we have. And
Yeah.
it's going to come in with both palette sizes that they offer, the big one and the small
Oh,
one. And
cool.
so whichever one you're not using, just delete it.
Yeah.
And then keep that, like I said, in the fixture build folder and start modifying it directly. And then every time I need to do this again on something else, I just re-download it and put it in the new one. So it's like
In the new ones. Right.
I don't have like some main source file. I would try to avoid having over connected files. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like the spider web should be as simple and linear as possible, not like a
If
giant.
it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny, it's still doing this now, like process wise, a lot of it feels like hand making a knife
Hmm.
to me. Like the way like I go from a sketch, I'm doing like I extrude my tang, like it's like you are getting to a shape and then you're modifying materials.
Hmm.
It's just a different way of looking at it. The other thing that I'm seeing that it's really opening up is I love to do variations on models. This becomes like a very fun way to do that. Like
Hmm.
I love doing different blade shapes. I love
Yeah.
doing different like handle, you know, textures and
Yeah.
profiles and stuff. The ability to like just take a drawing and start tweaking on the thing that already exists
Hmm.
is pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But I
great.
am bogged down. I am bogged down in the details. And this is like an ADHD thing, realizing it now where I always would struggle like with change. So like changing to a new system, my brain just like overloads because I look at like every possible potentiality and try to like solve all the problems. And it's like little tiny details will just fully roadblock me.
Mm.
And so that idea of like, well, okay, so I have this. Do I do it all in this file? I just need like, I need to see it done one time and then it
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, then it clicks.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like even I'm noticing now, like there's small changes I'm making to the process, like my design process from like what I learned from you initially. And then areas where I'm seeing not like, yeah, and I don't even really know how to explain that, but just my like minor ways of seeing like how things come to shape or like the order that I do things that is different from what you do. And I think that's
Hmm.
pretty fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
This is a great way to bounce back and forth.
if you had to guess, so if you like when you think about a project, if you have a knife that is done in CAD, how far into your project do you feel that you are?
When
Does
it's
that make sense?
finished, when the design in CAD is finished, but no
Yeah, done
fixtures.
design, no fixtures, never run apart.
Well, there's a difference in a fixed blade and a folder.
Totally.
So we'll start with that. If we're talking fixed blade, it's probably 25% of the way done
Kind of where my
or less.
that's
Yeah.
where my gut was.
Yeah.
And depending on the design, it's not like necessarily like time wise. Like This
Just
at this point is preferential changes. Like
yeah.
I am making design decisions ongoing.
Hmm.
So that extends the timeline.
Yeah.
From this point, from a CAD standpoint, if you have a fully completed knife, where are you, do you think, percentage wise in your CAD? Because you're going to fixturing and then cam, but like,
In terms of like energy invested into the fusion side,
yeah,
I would say getting the design done is the majority of the fusion time for me. The
75%.
Yeah. Yeah, the fixtures are because I have like a good like system and
Right.
my feeds and speeds, I can like the first time this is not necessarily true
Sure.
because there's a lot like what RPM, what feed,
Right.
what tool, like but now that I have a given strategy, it's pretty quick to go and like design a fixture around a part.
Right.
But what gets you is so things like scales, especially if it's 3D machine particularly, the a good like 40% of the design of the scale takes place in cam
Hmm.
because how you machine a 3D surface is going to drastically change what that part looks like and what it is.
Right.
And the model is only like a guideline as to what the tools are going to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you doing a crosshatch? Are you doing
Yeah.
step
Lace cut
overs? Are
or
you
yeah.
doing more topographic? Are you doing golf ball type pattern? Like,
Right.
are you trying to go fully smooth with it? Like,
Yeah.
there's just so many ways that I would say on the scale, after I have like the ergonomics of a 3D print, there's the majority of the like head scratching is happening in cam
In
of
cam.
like, not necessarily how can I get it done, but how can I make it unique? How can I make it
Right.
special? Like, there's a lot of
Well,
art.
and where to, again, this becomes like the interchangeability thing. So like, okay, I have this scale, this is the shape, this is the basic, contour, but I want multiple textures.
Yeah.
My I started to kind of break down there where I was like, wait, do I do this? Do I do this in the design, field, or is this a cam?
Cam, for sure.
And
Cam.
I reached out to you and you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, do your textures in cam. And so like I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I can kind of extrapolate, like, okay, so I'm gonna do this with tool paths, but it's different than what I've been doing. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm very excited to like see that. And I think that once I think a lot of people in a way look at CAD and CAM as like the CAD side is your design, and then like you go to CAM and you like make the part.
Mhm.
The way that you're using CAM and the way that I'm seeing CAM in this context, it is still a design tool.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It is not just functional.
Less so on like the tang of my knives because
Sure.
it's two dimensional.
Yeah.
But like the scale, oh yeah. Like I what I actually do is if I'm modeling a scale in the very beginning, I will jump into cam occasionally, like right there, because Fusion just lets you just jump into
Right.
manufacture. And I'll throw a toolpath on it that I'm kind of like thinking might work and not worry about any of the feeds and speeds and just start playing like, okay, step over, quarter inch,
Right.
and because sometimes it's like the shape of the scale is going to work better with a certain tool path and you kind of want to see. So sometimes the actual design portion, I'm just spitballing some cam at it and I'm not keeping that because that's supposed to be done downstream with like a totally separate model, like I said.
Right.
But sometimes if you go in, like
You're
if you're
just using it as a testing tool.
as a
Right.
test,
But it's
yeah,
but it's visual, and
yeah,
that's the thing. And then you could go and you could 3D print that
yep,
and see if you like the ergonomics of the
which I,
texture. Like, is it too
yep,
rough? Is it weird in your hand?
yeah, you
See
can,
this, dude, this stuff, it really is still, it's magic.
it really
It's
is,
so fun. It
yeah,
really is fun.
yeah.
And it's making more
Oh,
tools
let me
possible.
let me tell you this: the trifecta we spoke of,
Mm.
Fusion,
Oh,
Pearson,
done.
Style
Yeah.
for the
And a
win.
3D printer.
Yeah, yeah, four.
A
It's a
holy
four
quad.
cornered.
Yeah, the four corners. There you go.
Yeah,
Right. That's perfect.
yeah, yeah,
Incidentally, I'm showing you this just because I got excited about it. I'd never printed
yeah.
anything with like two
Nice.
materials. That's so
So did
fun.
you just pause it and then feed in
Yeah.
another spool? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
But I was looking at it and I was like, man, if you wanted to model, like if you had a handle with three-dimensional contours, you could break up the layers of the handle or layer of the scale, tripping over my tongue, um, and basically mock up like a G10,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. not great on a Prusa, pretty easy on a
Yeah.
Carbon X1
Bamboo.
bamboo.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the bamboo.
Yeah. I got it on my list.
It's on my list too.
Got too many things on my list,
I
but
only need to do one
yeah.
more design before I'm allowed to buy it.
Yeah. I
Dude, gotta trick the brain.
I got so close to buying one a while back, and I was like, you know what? I'm about to move shops, and there's some hardcore spending about to happen, so I'm gonna hold. But I gotta have one, just mainly for me, the speed, because
100%.
the my problem is I'm fast with CAD,
Yeah.
and I get like to where I'm on the finer details of a design, and I'm like, this should be like a little bit thicker, and then I make it a little thicker. It takes me 5 seconds. Now I wait an hour or two, 3, 4 hours,
Yeah.
depending to print. And I'm like, oh, I don't like it back.
Yeah.
And it's like
Back.
3 second design change, 4 hours of wait time.
Yeah.
First world problems, but still the bamboo is like 5 times faster, something crazy.
Yeah. No, and especially for the way that we're using the prototyping element. I mean, that between these two designs, literally there's one has a different radius
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
end of the pommel and like a slight angle change, but I don't know what it's going to feel like on the screen.
Yeah, yeah,
Each one of these is a total of 2 hours. It's like an
yeah,
hour for the scales, an hour for the tang.
yeah.
If you
And it,
can shave that down to 20 minutes,
yeah,
it's huge.
your iteration time is the shorter the iteration loop, the better. That's
Yeah.
for sure. And the 3D printer is the main part of that. So, yeah, I got to get one. I got to show you something though.
Lay it on me.
Speaking of scales that I spent forever designing, probably the most intensive design for ergonomics I've ever gotten into, this LT5 3D printed scales. I'm holding it up. Sorry, it's not a video. I know, guys.
We're working on it.
It's got a bevel grind on it. I've got a actual finished knife tang for the LT5 with 3D printed scales on it. Hasn't been finished like, but the actual machining is done. I'm very excited. The rest of the batch is getting ground right now, and I'm happy with the ergonomics finally, and I wanted to feel it on a real knife. I like it. So I am currently working on scale fixtures for this knife, and I want to do a YouTube video. So
Nice.
keep your eyes out, guys.
Dude, I can't wait. That's just what I need. God, this stuff is so fun. It's like starting over in a lot of ways. I hope that I can keep this rolling through like out my working lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
What a gift
Yeah.
to be like in the middle of a career and to be able to find a related technology, capitalize on it, and like basically become a beginner.
That's the key.
That is wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. Same for me, dude. Yeah, this whole
Dude.
machining thing, like it was the missing piece of the puzzle for
Yeah.
me for so long. And it's like I knew that was true, but I didn't realize now that I can take what I'm doing and go beyond the 3D print like with immediacy. Yeah, oh my gosh. It's a bigger iterative loop than just the design part, but that grand iterative loop of like the manufacturing be a part of it is amazing. I love it.
Were you doing design work before you had, before you had a 3D printer, or the question should be,
Oh,
how
yeah.
long were you doing design work
A long
before you
time.
got a 3D printer?
At least 5 years.
I was going to ask if machining was like a huge paradigm shift in the way that you designed, but if you had a 3D printer, I don't think it would have been as serious.
I'll say this
change.
though, right out of the gate when I was designing, I was having 3D prints done by
Yeah.
Boise State University,
I
and
remember
we'd
that.
literally, and it was like early enough in the 3D printing game where like it was normal to pay a university to
Yeah.
3D print for you. And
I have one of those. I've got a 3D print from the University of New Mexico Fab
Yeah.
Lab.
Yeah.
Like,
And that was like super normal. I remember the first time I saw that machine was on a campus tour when I was at like a senior in high school, and they showed me it. And it like the first time I'd ever seen a 3D printer, and it was like $100,000
yeah,
SLA resin
Yeah.
3D printer that like looked like it landed from outer space.
yeah.
The idea of 3D printing and additive manufacturing.
Like
and,
takes up half a room.
yeah. Yeah. It's like throwback to like 1968 IBM. Like, yeah. And it's crazy how fast that went. But yeah, we would pay them. And it was funny because they would give us 3D prints that were like white, and they were so opaque, like pearlescent, that you couldn't see anything. It just looked
no details. Yeah.
So I'd plasti dip them real quick,
Oh,
So
that's
I have
funny.
a bunch of like old designs that are plasti dipped SLA prints from Boise State. So that was the original, but the iterative loop on that is trash because it's like send it off, pay like $200
Yeah.
and have to 8 days later, you're like, oh, sweet. Well, that kind of sucks. I'm kind of broke. Do I want to pay $200
Yeah.
again? Like,
For another rapid
yeah,
prototype,
yeah. So,
quote unquote.
yeah. So the 3D printer ended up being a huge game changer. But,
Dude, you know what's fun about it? I think a lot about like the like legacy shop legacy stuff. And there's an element of making anything where when it's fully hand controlled, it's really relatable and it's teachable.
mhm,
So when I say that, I mean like you can bring your grandma in and show her what you're doing and she's going to understand it.
mhm,
You can bring your 6-year-old in and he's going to look at it and he's going to understand it, or she's going to look at it and understand it. As you get into like CAD, CAM, CNC, it becomes a lot less tangible.
mhm,
Right now in my shop, the two areas where I feel like the kids can actually like connect best is the forging side, right? And 3D printing.
mhm.
But it the forging is like so direct because you're like hit this until it turns into this.
Yeah.
Or like yesterday I was reshaping hammer handles just for so they feel different. And I'm like, I'm just using a rasp, right?
Mhm,
I'm not like modeling it. I'm not doing something. I'm not like putting it in the machine and it's disappearing. It's like Bo can stand there and he can see what I'm doing and he can ask, "Hey, can I do that for a minute?" And I can say, "Sure." Or
mhm.
like hold this component. I'm not having him hold the keyboard, right?
Yeah.
He could push the big green button. But the 3D printer opened up the tech side to that same process. He's obsessed with Harry Potter. And so he'll come out and he'll be like, "Hey, like, I want a lightning bolt necklace." Cool. We go into Fusion, we
Mhm,
design the lightning bolt, we go to the 3D printer, we print it. Since we did that first one, he'll come in and he'll be like, "Hey, I want to print my friend Grady a lightning bolt necklace." So he's made like 3 or 4 of these things. Now I have him like, we'll go and be like, "All right, like, how do you want to size the chain? How do you want to cut it?" And what I realized, I'm like, just that one tool opened it up in the way for me that it
yeah.
like hand making does. I
Yeah.
just think that is very cool.
Yeah, it is. It is
Right.
absolutely. Uh, my daughter Delta, she's turning 4 in a week. I bought her a couple of rolls of filament in some fun colors,
Oh, nice.
and we're gonna start out maybe go on Thingiverse and like do a little shot, a little perusing, see if there's anything catches her eye, and then I think if she connects to that, start like, what do you want to design? You know what I mean? She's
Right.
4, so
Or
it's
what do you want
like,
to change? It's
yeah,
like
exactly.
they can do it though. That's the
Hmm.
thing. I was going to ask you because I didn't know if this is something that you'd ever tracked, and a Google search probably answers my question. But like, is there like a kid CAD at this point? I feel like there has to be
Hmm.
like very limited.
There is called Minecraft.
Right. Minecraft. Not wrong.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to hurt some feelings and like
No.
throw out
No,
a
no.
different,
It's
a
called
different
Rhino. No.
program. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but like Thingiverse, that's great. And like it brings it, I don't know. I mean, even Maddie was like, "Hey, well, I forget what it is. It's like a little face cleaner thing, like a vibrating, like ultrasonic cleaner."
Exfoliator or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And she's like, "Oh, I hate that this just like lays on the counter." And she's like, I found a file for a 3D print. Can you make this for me?" I'm like, "Absolutely."
Yes.
And you just realize like it's like this little micro factory.
Hmm.
Man, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
they're wonderful.
I geeked out there for a minute.
No, I
I
get
love
it,
it.
man.
I love it.
The fact that people have become numb to 3D printing so quickly is is I get it, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the power of the world in our hands, for the
It like
creative mind.
anything, it's
Yeah.
how you apply it. Like
Hmm.
none of what we are doing is create, is like, we're not rocket surgeons. Like there is a level of skill, but I think a lot of it really is how you apply
Hmm.
the tools.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why like you see Do you know who Taigu is? Have you ever
I
heard that
don't.
name? So Taigu is a maker. He's still around. He in the 90s, there was like this movement towards like neo-tribal bladesmithing. And there was an organization that popped up around it. And like it's no power tools. It is a lot of like indigenous techniques from around the world. I mean, he's down in Arizona. He's like
Cool.
smelting black sand and like
Oh
making,
wow.
iron ore and then like doing
Jeez.
Tom Mahogany, like crazy stuff.
That's
Where was I
cool.
going with that? What were we just talking about?
We were talking
I got
about
really
3D
excited.
printing and the power and
Where, dude, totally gone.
when you said black sand, it just reminded me of sintering.
Yeah,
3
basically.
3D printed sintering. I don't know. I don't
I
think that's
I
where you're
have
going,
I
but
have absolutely no idea where I was going with that concept,
that's all right because it's a cool story.
dude. But talking about like the movement from making, right? So like you were talking about how 3D printing is like lost at this point, where you're like people are just like, oh yeah, whatever, that's like 3D printed.
Mhm.
The the I think the transition between like different groups making things, moving forward and backwards, like they were moving. I think the neo tribal thing, part of it was that they were moving away from some of the technology and some of the styles that were coming out around forging.
Mhm.
I feel like we're in our side, we're also hitting some of that, where you have people that are like super interested. You have people that come in with a preconceived notion because they're like, oh, I see people using CNC and I see people doing 3D printing. I'm going to do it this way. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a messy thought, but
Well, I know what you mean. It's like any force has an equal and opposite
right.
force. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the traditional versus progressive push back and forth is there in all technology and all art, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
It's why Yellowstone is like the most watched show right now, in my
Right.
opinion. You know what I mean? It's like it's not really accurate of like the old time West, but it's like there's that longing for that. And funny talking
Yeah.
about 3D
I just
printing,
listened to a pod
but
about the Yellowstone effect
yeah.
in Montana.
Oh, my dad talks about it all the time because all of his friends are ranchers. He's a saddle maker. All of his friends are like bit and spur makers. They all like everybody just became like overwhelmed with like new interest
New
from
money orders.
new from people with literal new money that are like, let's get all cowboy. So it's big.
So
Yeah.
interesting, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it bugs me so much that I was going somewhere with it and literally just like vapor. Anyway, such is life.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It's all
What
right.
else?
Um, I don't know where we're at, but I think we're at an hour.
I don't know either, man.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. We've been having problems with video. It's actually really nice just to be able to see like an unfrozen
Yeah.
video with like properly timed facial responses.
Yeah, I feel like this has improved the feel,
Agreed.
the ability to just talk. So I hope you guys kind of picked up on that. But we will continue to use Zoom. And sorry for Riverside, but maybe it's
Yeah.
not the way. Is what it is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So
All right.
appreciate you guys on Patreon as
Thank
always.
you.
Thanks for continuing. Thanks for all the rest of you listeners. Thanks for coming back, hopefully every week, and listen to us BS a little bit.
Send us questions.
Yeah.
Give us topics.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know if there's anybody that you want us to interview.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
Sounds great.
Go make some stuff.
Peace.